Hey everyone, and welcome back. Ready to dive into a real head scratcher today. We're talking about decrypting traffic in Kubernetes.
Yeah, this is a big one, especially if you're into security or even just want to know how data moves around in your cluster.
For sure, it's like solving a puzzle where the pieces keep changing. We've got this document with some interesting leads though, so let's jump in.
Oh,
Why is decrypting Kubernetes traffic such a challenge? I mean, it uses TLS 1.3, right? That's got to be secure, but is that what makes it so difficult to crack?
you're right. TLS 1.3 is super secure, and that's kind of the whole point. But the real hurdle is this thing called Perfect Forward Secrecy, or PFS for short.
PFS, okay. Now, in English, what does that mean?
It's like imagine each conversation in your cluster gets a unique, self-destructing message. Once it's read, poof, gone forever.
So even if you manage to snag those secret Kubernetes server keys, it wouldn't make a difference.
Nope, not a chance. It'd be like trying to open a door after the key crumbled to dust. That's PFS. It's all about that super tight security.
Okay, I get it. Security is paramount. But that makes our lives tricky, especially with all those different communication points in a cluster. You've got the API server talking to the kubelet's talking to the pods. It's a lot.
And get this, even if you somehow decrypted the traffic between the API server and the kubelet, the traffic from the kubelet to those pods might be a whole other story. Different keys, different encryption. It's a wild ride.
Wow. Okay. So we've established Kubernetes is basically Fort Knox. What are some of the biggest hurdles people hit when trying to understand this encrypted traffic?
Well, one of the first things this document points out is that a big chunk of Kubernetes is coded in Go.
Ah, Go, the language that's everywhere these days.
Right, and it's great, but Go doesn't natively play nice with SSL keylogging.
Now, for those of us who aren't fluent in code, break down why SSL keylogging is so important for us here.
Think of SSL keylogging like, think of it as a blueprint for a master key. Without it, decrypting traffic is like picking a lock in the dark, difficult.
So that's a no-go then. Okay, what about another classic trick, the man-in-the-middle proxy? Those things work everywhere else, right?
You'd think so. But Kubernetes loves to keep us on our toes. Remember mTLS, mutual TLS?
Vaguely. It's like TLS, but with even more handshakes.
Exactly. Kubernetes uses client certificates for the kubelet to talk to the API server, and most MITM proxies can't handle that properly, so it breaks things. You're locked out.
Ugh, so frustrating. So what are we supposed to do? We can't easily decrypt because of perfect forward secrecy and Go's quirks, and MITM proxies are out because of mTLS. This is starting to feel impossible. What if we just turned off TLS? Just for a bit, to get a peek.
Chuckles. You're certainly thinking outside the box, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But trust me, turning off TLS in Kubernetes, that's a recipe for disaster.
Really? Is it that bad? Why? I get it's secure, but there's got to be a workaround.
Here's the thing, TLS is everywhere in Kubernetes. It's not just about encrypting data, it's how everything authenticates, establishes trust. Disabling it would be .chaos, like cutting the communication lines in the middle of a big operation.
Okay, you've made your point. No turning off TLS. But I'm holding on to the fact that this document does offer some solutions, right?
Don't worry, it does. We're not completely out of luck.
Okay, good. Because right now, I need a little hope. What can we do?
One solution involves getting a bit crafty with those keys. We're talking custom certificate authority.
Ooh, now that sounds interesting, like we're about to do some serious hacking. But how would that even work?
It's all about becoming the root of trust. Your own CA signs all the certificates in your Kubernetes setup. You become the ultimate authority with the power to decrypt everything.
So it's less about decrypting the traffic in real time and more about having the master key, just in case you need to decode things later.
You got it. Of course, this approach comes with its own security considerations, but it's definitely an option.
Okay, custom CA check. What other tricks do we have?
Well, if we can't always directly decrypt everything, maybe we can still gather some intel.
Right, knowledge is power.
Exactly. The document mentions using a sidecar container, basically a helper running alongside your application with tools like TCP dump for packet capture.
So we're not decrypting in this scenario, but kind of eavesdropping.
Pretty much. You won't see the actual message content, but you can see things like source and destination IPs, packet sizes, the protocols being used.
So it's like being able to see the shadows of people talking behind a frosted glass door.
Mm,
You might not hear them, but you can see who's talking to who.
that's a great way to put it. And that kind of information can be super useful for debugging or spotting anything fishy going on.
Definitely. Okay, so far we've got our custom CA for those I need to see everything moments,
Mm.
and our sneaky sidecar for more general intel. Anything else?
This next one might seem obvious, but people forget about it all the time. cranking up that logging level.
Wait, are you serious? The answer was hiding in plain sight all along.
Sometimes, yeah. Kubernetes components can tell you a lot, you just have to ask nicely. In this case, asking nicely means running them with the V8 flag.
V8. Got it. And what does this magical incantation do?
It enables verbose logging. You go from short film summaries to the director's cut full details of those HTTP requests and responses.
Ah, I see. So maybe not raw packet data, but a much clearer picture of those API interactions. That's super valuable. What else you got?
Ready for something really cool?
Hit me with it. I'm ready.
Remember how we talked about perfect forward secrecy and how those keys disappear, making decryption almost impossible? Well, what if there was a way to see the data before it even gets encrypted?
Whoa, hold on. Are you suggesting time travel here? Because I'm not sure we have the budget for that.
Chuckles. No time travel required. The document mentions this tool, eCapture. It works by intercepting the system calls that manage encryption.
System calls. Now we're really getting into the weeds.
We are, but stay with me. System calls are just how a program like Kubernetes talks to the operating system. eCapture swoops in and grabs the data while it's on its way to be encrypted. You see it in the raw.
That is slick. So even with PFS doing its best to keep things secret, eCapture's like, nope, I see what you're doing.
You got it. It's a seriously powerful tool, especially because it bypasses that whole encryption layer entirely.
Okay, so we've got 4 solid options. The custom CA, the sidecar snooping, verbose logging for those hidden details, and eCapture, our secret weapon. Is that it for our decryption journey?
Not quite. There's another layer to this onion, the container runtime itself.
Ah, yes, the unsung hero of the Kubernetes world.
Each container runtime has its own quirks, and those can affect things like security, performance, even how visible that network traffic actually is.
And the document specifically calls out runtimes with strong isolation, like gvisor and K8s containers. Those might change what we can even see on the network.
Exactly. It's another piece of the puzzle to think about when you're troubleshooting or analyzing traffic in a cluster.
This is all great information. It sounds like decrypting Kubernetes traffic is less of a straightforward path and more like, well, a detective story.
You could say that, but that's what makes it so interesting. Every layer of Kubernetes, from the encryption to the container runtime, has its own challenges and possibilities.
So where does this all leave us? What are the key takeaways here?
Yeah.
Especially for those dealing with this in real-world scenarios.
I think the biggest takeaway is that, yeah, decrypting Kubernetes traffic is tough, but it's not impossible. We've got options. Our custom CA is there for when you need to go full-on detective mode, sidecar snooping for a bit of undercover work. Plus, don't forget those hidden in plain sight details we can get with verbose logging. And, of course, eCapture, that's our secret weapon for grabbing that data before encryption even touches it.
Right. And then there's that wildcard, the container runtime itself. That can either make our lives easier or harder, depending on what we're working with.
Absolutely. This really emphasizes how important it is to understand the tools we've got and how to use them strategically. It's about picking the right tool for the job.
Like having a whole Swiss Army knife of decryption tools for Kubernetes. Knowing which one to use is key. This document has been a goldmine of information, but it sounds like there's always more to uncover, right?
Oh, for sure. That's what's so cool about this field. It's always evolving. As encryption gets more sophisticated, so do the methods we use to analyze and understand it. It's a constant back and forth.
A game of cat and mouse where the rules keep changing. It's not as easy as just snapping our fingers and bam, everything is decrypted.
Right.
We've got to be creative, use the right tools, and be ready to adapt.
Exactly. If our listeners take away one thing from this deep dive, I hope it's that curiosity is crucial. Don't be afraid to dig into the nitty-gritty, try different things, and never stop learning. The world of Kubernetes is constantly evolving, and the more we understand it, the better equipped we'll be to navigate all its twists and turns.
It's all about being a lifelong learner, especially in such a fast-paced field. Well, on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive. A huge thank you to our expert for breaking down this complex and fascinating topic. It's been a really insightful conversation.
Happy to do it. I'm always down to geek out about Kubernetes.
And to our amazing listeners, thank you for coming along on this journey into the world of decrypting Kubernetes traffic. We hope you've gained some valuable knowledge and maybe even a few new tricks for your Kubernetes toolkit. Until next time, keep exploring, keep experimenting, and keep that curiosity alive. It's fascinating to think about this constant evolution of security measures.
It's like a high-stakes game of chess where both sides are always trying to outmaneuver each other.
Absolutely. It keeps us on our toes. So for those who are knee-deep in Kubernetes and maybe feeling a little overwhelmed by all of this, what's the one piece of advice you'd leave them with?
Honestly. The most important thing is to stay curious. Don't be afraid to roll up your sleeves. Experiment and dive deep into the technical details. The more you understand about how Kubernetes works, how encryption works, the better equipped you'll be to handle those curveballs that come your way.
It's all about being a lifelong learner, especially in a field as dynamic as this. Well, on that note, it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive. A huge thank you to our expert for demystifying the world of decrypting Kubernetes traffic. It's been an eye-opening conversation.
My pleasure. Always happy to geek out about Kubernetes.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of Kubernetes security. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and maybe even a few new tools for your Kubernetes toolkit. Until next time, keep exploring, keep experimenting, and keep those curiosity fires burning.